Zach, thanks for joining us on the Splitting Hairs podcast, man, for another former player feature. You are the first repeat guest on the podcast, so I appreciate you carving out some time and,
So,
becoming a vet at this thing.
yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Always good to talk with a former teammate about the Jacks.
Absolutely. A question that I got for you is as you progress throughout your prep career, obviously going through college and having a successful career, a man who really needs no introduction, but we can kind of dive into a little bit of your bio after this question. When you were interviewed in college and then into the pros, especially, probably a little bit in high school at times, talk a little bit about the difference in media coverage exposure and what that was like from your perspective, a man of many words.
Yeah, well, it started off, right? You think of, I mean, I got, when I was in high school, there's just so much has changed, right? I mean, I graduated in 2010, and like the only place where sports were getting reported was the local newspaper, right? That was like where high school sports got reported. Like our town had it was like three suburbs. I think it was called the Sun Week. Anyway, that was like where local sports got reported. And contrast that to now, right, where everyone can be a journalist essentially, right? We all have those capabilities, citizen journalists. You don't necessarily need to be a part of a official organization. So that I would during my career, that's kind of what happened, right? So then go into college and it was more of the same. But Terry Vanderbeck was the one. He was the one guy that covered the Jacks, right? Like when and you maybe have interviewed with him as well, right? But and we had like the media day during fall camp where the stations would come in, right? But on the day-to-day basis, we had one guy, right, that was covering us that would ask me questions, and I always found it more of a nuisance than anything else, right? To have to answer those and just want to kind of get on with my day. Then you go to the NFL, and not only am I now in the NFL, and then the coverage is greater, but also that wave of citizen journalism, podcasts, spin-off individual shows was happening. So the coverage was much more significant and not just from a traditional standpoint, but from the change in technology as well. So definitely got a lot better at talking and got really good at playing the game of media, which I don't, which isn't what this is, this platform, but when someone's asking you about your game plan, like how you're going to defeat an opponent, right? You have to do right
Score
by
more
these
points.
guys. Yeah, I have
That's
to
what you
answer
want
the
to say.
question.
Right.
Yeah, I have to answer the question without saying anything because I just, you reach the understanding these guys, they don't necessarily want to write about the Detroit Lions every day, but it's their job. And it's the same, it's a similar, there's unique storylines to each season, but, so you got to give them something. So definitely got good at playing that game as I went through my professional career.
Nice. Yeah, and it's interesting you bring up Terry V because the whole kind of mission and aim of what we're doing here is to boost the signal for and build the brand for Jackrabbit Athletics, and that has really taken off. Obviously, the success after I graduated with your class and then other classes following has just kind of seen a steady meteoric rise, if you can imagine that. And now there's tons of different avenues of coverage for Jackrabbit Athletics. And so I think the cool thing about the citizen journalism, if you will, is that you get to find your niche of it. And so with this being a former player perspective, obviously peeling back some layers to see, what made you successful at state, what made you choose state, what you've done since state, and how the Jacks have kind of marked you as a young man and now as an adult. And so I think that's kind of the fun of it. You can put your own stamp on it and get creative with it.
Right. Yeah. You're not, that's the other component too, right? When you have access to this technology, you're not beholden to any other stakeholders, really, right? Perhaps you get one investor, maybe, but most people are just going at it themselves. So is whatever they want to cover and whatever they want to talk about. And you don't have to, if you don't want to do sound bites, you don't have to, right? So
Yeah.
that's
And a cool thing about that is, sorry to interrupt you. The cool thing about that is like with us, we do take sponsors, but we also do a little bit of reverse sponsorship. So for me, if I like a product or a service, I'm going to give them a shout out and boost their signal, as well, which is a cool aspect because a lot of times you might be beholden to those stakeholders, and they may want you to curtail certain topics, mainly in the cultural political space. Sports is there's pretty
right.
much anything goes in this space. But I find it fascinating, and it's great to be able to earn a living. That South Dakota State helped me springboard into that to where I can do this as a hobby and still kind of stay connected to football. So it's been exciting, and I think that's kind of a good segue. Speaking of staying connected to football, you're a very intelligent, academically driven student athlete, which is kind of dissipating in our culture today with all the NIL stuff. But you took the MCAT, correct, out of college while
Yeah.
you were right in the pros, right, or in the off season.
So yeah, so I yeah, I took the MCAT twice. So I took the MCAT in the spring before senior year and got a decent score. And then got accepted to medical school, then tried out for the Lions, made the team, and deferred my enrollment. But then that deferment expired, so I retook my MCAT. I think it was in the winter before the 2018 season. So I retook it in 2017 winter. Right, I'm getting the years wrong. 2018 winter, 2018 early spring, like January, February 2018, and did very well. And then ended up not. I don't believe hard work is ever wasted, but I think I'd probably have that one back. That those 8 weeks I spent studying for that in the running back room with no windows. It was been useful though for what I've been up to now, doing a couple things. One comes very naturally, which is the NFL agent, representing guys in the league. Know a lot about football just during my 10 years of doing it, 5 in college, 5 in the NFL. But I got a health coaching certification and a master's in nutrition, and so that all that scientific work, including the MCAT, was useful as I went and got that master's and helping people optimize. Not just our NFL clients in the agency, but also helping some general population, right? People optimize their body and minds for performance, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So, and we've talked about it before, but elucidate the listeners a little bit on what made you decide to pivot away from a medical
Yeah.
career and into this domain.
Right. Yeah. So there's it's a really a host of reasons, right? Whenever I'm going to make a major life decision like that, I'm going to spend a lot of time thinking about it and praying about it as well. And so a lot, from that mental side, um, I became much more enamored with the optimization space and recognized during my professional career that the a lot of the current healthcare system is just set up to make sick people not sick, right? And that's not necessarily the fault of that's not the fault of the hardworking physicians, right, or medical staff, right? Just more how our healthcare system is organized at this time.
Yeah.
And so that, recognize that. And then I also spent a lot of time in that optimization, it's kind of can be used negatively, but a biohacking space, right? Because I'm trying to if I recover better on Friday, I'm going to play better on Sunday. I'm going to get paid more on Monday, right? So doing that experimentation and finding that some of the stuff that really benefited me, became much more interested in that component of healthcare, and so that was kind of that, some of those experiences during my career. But then ultimately, really I prayed about it and got a word from God I shouldn't go to medical school, so I didn't go. That was the final word, right? Prayed about it, had been praying about it for a long time, and got a word from God that I shouldn't go, so I didn't.
Nice. Well, yeah, that's that's pretty clear, and I like
Yeah.
I like your courage in sharing, your spiritual grounding in that avenue of things. It's not necessarily fashionable in this day and age, but I like how you let it rip.
Yeah,
You're
well,
going to share that.
I'd encourage anyone, right? It's like to you can't anyone. There's nothing special about me or in my faith, right? Anyone can hear God's voice. Uh, just gotta be listening.
It's good. So that maybe we should go down that path slightly here. So what made you so convicted in your faith, and like was there like an aha moment did you have? Because I know it drives you a lot, and normally I might not go down this path with people, but it's really it seems knowing you and watching you operate, it seems to be the fuel that moves you.
Yeah, I'm so my faith really began at South Dakota State, right? So it's fun to be on a South Dakota State podcast, right? And show and talk about it. So um when I was in high school, went to church, but my faith wasn't my own. My first year at South Dakota State, I didn't go to any faith things at all. Just kind of took the year off. I didn't want to go, right? I wasn't interested, so I didn't. And then had a teammate that was inviting me to FCA, and I'd never been to an organization like that, right? I know some people get exposed to some of those things in high school, and I never had. So finally, I went, and during my time at South Dakota State, it began with that exposure, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And by the time I graduated, I was going to like three or four Christian based spiritual events a week, right? I was going to FCA on Wednesdays. I was going to a church service Saturday night. I was going to a different church service Sunday night. We were doing sermon nights. And the more I learned and the more I dove into it myself, the more my faith became my own. And I enjoyed it. Enjoyed those things and wanted to go do those things because they were soothing to my spirit and helpful for me. And that continued to grow during my time in the NFL. And even recently, I've been reflecting on the last 5 years because it hasn't necessarily been, I feel like I have transitioned well, but it hasn't been easy, or it could have been easy. It would have been easier if I'd played longer, right? Of course, right? If I just played one, another year and a half, right? Financially, career wise, everything would be different. But, you know, I was, I was probably, as I think back, I was probably 6 months away. So if I had played out all my 2019 season, I would have bought a rental property. So I was dialed in. Like I knew the market, I knew the price I wanted, I knew how many bedrooms, I knew exactly the location it needed to be in, and I had the money ready to go. If I played out that 2019 season, that off season, I was going to buy my first rental property. End up, I get cut by Detroit, which is a surprise. I bounce around. The next year's COVID. I don't get re-signed. My career's over. And because I got cut, we had to buy this house that I'm standing in right now. And then, with the future uncertain, I'm not going to buy an investment property. And so, because that didn't happen, which I really wanted to have happen, right? Because that didn't happen, then I go and I get the health coach certification and the master's and become an NFL agent. And the number of people that I've interacted with and touched it's infinite, infinitely greater than I would have as a landlord, right? And just gone to the next rental property and the next, right? And had a property manager, whatever. And and I had one of my clients tell me the other day, this not an agency client, just a general population, someone helping with their life. He said, I joined your program, thought it'd be cool to, meet with a former NFL player. He's a Lions fan. And it's like, but you've changed my whole life. And so that, kind of in that moment, just realized all the steps and what has, it would have been easier that other way, but it wouldn't have been better. And I can only see that thread through my life because of my faith, right? Bringing it back in conversation and just seeing how that all worked out and how it's been better because of that. And who knows if I'd played longer, if I would be able to torch my son's teammates in flag football practice, right? I maybe would have been a lot more physically broken, but Wednesday night I was letting it rip in Sharks and Minnows, first and second graders with the flags on. So that, even now, just being able to look back and see that thread and have that foundation, it's it's so valuable. And I don't know. I just feel like it'd be really hard to go through life without that. Which is why I'm not shy about talking about it.
No, I love it. I love it. And then I want to get into the name of your company there that on your shirt as we progress throughout this pod. But I kind of want
Yeah.
to address some of the things that you mentioned when you talk about, you know, the path that you're at now is better. Can you kind of maybe shed some light on what you were going through? Because a lot of people see the result, right? They see the
Yeah.
result of Zach Zenner, 3 straight seasons of 2,000 rush yards at South Dakota State University.
Sure.
Probably should have been drafted, but there's a stigma for people in a position that you may or may not have played, and that's one of
Yeah.
the knocks. And then the other thing being, you had a nice successful run with the Lions, but they didn't see all the hurdles and obstacles and the serpentine path you had to go to get there. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the lows when you were in the league and how you navigated that.
Yeah. I mean, while I was in the NFL, I mean, it felt like everything was really about to happen in that week 6. I was essentially starting against the Bears, and it started the year playing just a handful of special team snaps, and now all of a sudden, had some injuries, had uh, some other people that had some struggles, so they're giving me my shot essentially, right? And so I'm in, and then I break my ribs, and my lung collapses, and I'm done for the year, right? It's like sitting in the hospital with a tube in your chest, like what was just lost, Is it? And you just don't know. But what I did know is that I had to start all over again the next year, right? I had lost whatever momentum I could have had just evaporated, and now and then the next year had to fight again to make the team and started at the bottom again. And unfortunately, Amir broke his foot. That was terrible for him. And I remember actually being really upset. We touched on media and interviews. That was one of the few times I lost my temper with the media because everyone is acting like I should have been super happy that one of my good friends and teammates just had his Liz Frank snapped against the Tennessee Titans. And I was not happy that that happened, even though it did benefit me.
So
Anyway, one of the,
why?
one of the
So
few
so
times I lost my
so why
temper.
though? Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that story, but why? Because like that, it's not natural. It's not a natural human instinct to. Well, I would say it is more natural of a human instinct to be self-serving in that moment. And even if you're politically correct when facing the media, maybe the guys are thinking, I would say by and large, most guys probably go the opposite way. And they're like, this is my shot. It's unfortunate he got hurt, but it is what it is. Nobody was crying for me when I broke my ribs and had a collapsed lung. So walk me,
Yeah.
walk me through why you're a different teammate in that regard. Because I believe
Um,
you when you say that.
yeah, I mean, I guess, I think, it goes back perhaps to faith. think it goes back as well to, Amir and we trained together down in the pre-draft. We lived together the summer before rookie year. Um, one of my good friends, right? So, and we had that shared connection. We played against each other in college, even in 2013. So, it's one of my friends, I guess, which made that easier, but it's not something I guess I've really considered. Um, and it wasn't that I didn't understand the opportunity in front of me. It just, I could understand the opportunity I had in front of me, but also still be sad that one of my teammates and friends had a significant foot injury, one that honestly some other running backs perhaps wouldn't have returned from, right? But credit to him and his work ethic. He is still in the NFL. He's on year 10 right now.
That's so whenever I see and hear him, still being in the league, it's like, I mean, if I'm thinking why is Zenner not still in the league, what are you thinking?
Why am I not in the league anymore?
Correct.
I was not so I took one step back. My body kind of, I don't want to say it gave up, but ran the tires a little ran the tires a
Yeah.
little too long, and was having issues with my back, was having issues with my vision, from getting hit in the head, not necessarily from concussions, but just overall abuse, and was having issues with my back. And I essentially, because of physically what was happening, I wasn't able to be the same person. You couldn't. I wasn't happy to run in there and take all the garbage. Not that there's garbage reps, but like, oh, like Zach will do it. Like that was kind of the guy I was, right, during
The
my whole
one
career.
trail
It's
guy.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
like, oh, well, Zach will do it, right? Like, oh, we'll just have Zach take all the reps during spring ball, right? Because everyone's hurt, right? And also, it's like that was hard for me for the first time because of what was physically going on. And then I just took a step back in my play, just one little step back, and that's all it took. That's how close I was my whole career. And once I took one little step back, that was it. I was done. And then I go and I spend a lot of time, energy investment. I get healthy. I fix my visions a lot. It's not even my vision. It's more like my perception of my visual field is now much improved, much better. My back is really quite good now, but at that point, it's really hard to get back in. So I think it's wear and tear, and just how my body is, and what I needed to do to stay in the NFL.
So it's more the miles on the engine as opposed to the ability was still there, but the miles on the engine were starting to make that motor hum a little bit. Is that safe to say?
Well, I think though my ability had taken a step back, just the position, right? The nature of the position as running back, that my ability had taken a step back because of what was happening to my body.
Certainly. But given the fact that the NFL can be kind of a journeyman league, especially for folks coming from the FCS level, despite the fact that we've built a pretty solid reputation as an NFL, somewhat of a factory definitely a factory from the FCS level. When you were going through it, you got to cross paths with some icons. And one of those was Drew Brees, correct?
Just for 6 days, but yes.
Oh, nice.
So I
Okay.
was down in New Orleans. So yeah, so in my 2019, I got signed to the Saints on. I worked out with them on Monday, I think. Or did they fly me in Monday and I work out Tuesday? I think I signed Tuesday. And then I played for them on Sunday against the Bears. Played fine, played well, learned their whole offense. Then they had to cut me Monday, and then I signed with the Cardinals on Tuesday. Played for them on Sunday against the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
I was in Arizona for 6 weeks, and they cut me. The Dolphins claimed me off waivers, and I got signed and I played for them on Sunday against the Jets, and then they released me. That was with Brian Flores and Fitzmagic for 6 days.
Nice.
So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, and Drew actually
Brees.
though, but I played with Teddy because Drew
Oh,
was
that's right.
hurt.
That's right.
But he did he had a thumb,
Yep.
and but I did receive a handoff from Drew Brees in after practice. It was, hey, Zach will do it. After practice, Drew needs handoffs, right? That was who I was. So I got Drew some handoffs, because that was like the next step in his rehab.
That's cool. Yeah, I crossed paths with him very briefly when he would come back to Purdue for my short time I was there. And he would come into the Mollenkoff Center and work routes in the off season a little bit with some of the younger quarterbacks, and just a stand up dude. He owned some Jimmy Johns out there, so we always love to frequent those spots for some
Yeah.
freaky fast delivery. But yeah, no, that's really cool that what is that like in terms of preparation and really just the toll it takes on your mind, bopping around, having to learn different playbooks like that? within the span of a few days in some cases and weeks in others.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I pretty much could have the whole offense learn. I would pretty much have that week. Now, at least the whole playbook's not open, right? During the season, it's kind of like, hey, here's what we're running this week. But I was ready to run every single play of every single game for all three teams.
So give us a
Um,
quick idea of that. So how many plays we talking typically, and what's the most difficult aspect about it? Is it the nomenclature?
yeah, I mean, New Orleans had that was Sean. Sean was the head coach. We had a ton of plays. I mean, and I had like my little package, but I had known that one came pretty easy because we had ran that offense my rookie year with Coach Joe Lombardi. So as our offensive coordinator, and actually I rejoined him with the Saints. Anyway, it was that similar offense, so it came back pretty quick. But man, I don't even know the number of plays. You look at a sheet, that's how many. You can see each little line on game day. That's how many plays we had. Uh, Arizona was not as much, but that was really unique. That was a really unique offense. That offense was Cliff. And so their whole plays were like red solar system. That's everything. So like that's the formation, that's motions, that's protections, that's everything. So it's kind of like a code word offense. So that was harder for me.
Because it's not intuitive based on all the other structure of calls and stuff.
Yeah, so like like the New Orleans offense, right, is like deuce right jump 62 Dino X Y X cross Z mesh or something like that, right? But I just and then you say kill 44 roll or something, so but I know it's everything is set out, so it's a lot harder on the
Yeah.
quarterback. But the verbiage is longer, so I can hear my
Break it
parts right
down.
in there.
Exactly.
Well, it's like red solar system, which is a play action left, and I have the nickel, which I didn't get because they told me I didn't have the nickel. Turns out I was supposed to get the nickel against the Saints. Anyway, they that's everything. So that was hard. That was a big shift for me, and because it's just memorization at that point, right? Well, it's like with the Saints offense at the time. I was like, okay, we're running a mesh concept. That means I'm getting to the flat, right? I'm not gonna be over the middle, right, on this mesh concept. Or maybe, I can if I hear these other words and I know the routes, or it's like X comeback. Okay, I'm gonna have a flare route to bring the hook curl defender out of the throwing
Out of
lane,
the box.
right?
Yep.
So then it's not I'm hearing these other things, it clues me in, helps me remember what I have. And then Miami was my fourth offense that year, and that one was hard because it didn't make sense to me. It just didn't hit my brain right. Where it's like, I remember one of the challenges, like outside zone left was leopard, and outside zone right was not like it wasn't like a big cat animal or something like that. You know what I mean? And then like leopard had an R in it. It's like,
Yeah.
so that I don't remember. It was like leopard and like, golly, leopard. I don't remember what the right one was, but the point is that there were certain plays in that offense that didn't hit my brain well. So that was a challenge for me. And they were doing some different stuff with protections. So anyway, yeah, it just, at the end of the day though, football's football. And once you've learned an offense, like I talked about with the concepts, right? Okay, right. If this is what we're going to run, if we're going to run a comeback, there's going to be a flare out. Or if it's to the nub side tight end, so we got a nub side tight end. So it'd be like you got twins left, tight end right, whatever, tight end right, or an ace, and we got a stick route. Well, I'm going to be in the flat
Mhm.
because the stick concepts
The
is
way
stick
the
flag.
formation is. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's kind of just putting words to NFL to football concepts that you've been running,
Forever.
really, for a long time. Football is football, and at the end of the day, there's innovative stuff happening and how it's dressed up, and but you got you only got so many windows and places to throw and to be.
Exactly. Yeah, there's some really creative stuff being done with, I mean, and it has been done probably since, the modern era of football, maybe in the 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe. But as far as like the way Puka Nakua is used, for instance, to where they run, so many abbreviated motions with him. They bring him back in and out of the formation all the way across. They'll bring him into the formation to lead up on a backer, which,
Yeah,
our offensive coordinators, in the past, Zach Luan, who's now with
yeah,
Northwestern, and then obviously
yeah,
Coach Olson. They're doing a lot of really creative things. I think it'd be a nightmare to be a D coordinator, but also we're seeing a lot of very innovative concepts from defensive coordinators as well, with more multiple defenses. 4-2-5 seems to be like a very hot commodity nowadays to
yeah. Or
deploy
you
as
look at
far as
Nebraska's three. What they did last year, right? It kind of just their defense was excellent last year, and it really threw a wrench in a lot of. It's like there's just so many things happening right at that second level.
yep,
No, it's and it reminds me, going back to the original comment about the change in technology and access, right? That's occurred over the years. It's like, okay, well, if this one play worked like at this one high school team in Florida and it goes viral, then you're going to see it in college, like
exactly.
that a couple weeks later, right? And then
Copycat
you might,
league.
yeah, and I can't remember who said it. It might have been Mike Leach, but I don't want to misquote anyone. But someone said like, if you want to see innovative football, watch high school ball,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
Mike
then
Leach for sure. That's Mike
it,
Leach.
yeah, and then because he said you watch high school tape, and that's where he got a lot of his ideas, and then his idea, and then it just expands from there, and that expansion is happening so much more quickly now with the digital age and how things can be shared.
Yeah, and it's unreal. I don't know what your thought is on this, but like you bring up tech. So you guys had Huddle before you graduated, correct?
Yes.
So that for those who don't know, who may be some older fans, older than Zach and I, or even younger fans unfamiliar with it, Huddle is an application software that's now I think owned by XOS, which was our game film software. But Huddle actually is an application you could then leave the football facility where we always had to be, bound to that facility to be able to watch film in our meeting rooms and stuff. But then you got the opportunity to watch it remotely, which is a game changer because you can watch it in your dorm, you can watch it in the mess hall, you can watch it as often as you want. And then the analytics capture for coaches to be able to track, who's actually watching film versus the old school Jamarcus Russell deal where they put a blank tape in the mail to him with the playbook and asked him if he
Yeah.
watched it. So none of
Yeah.
that
Right.
none of that tomfoolery was going on in Zach's era when he started to get Huddle, which is pretty cool. But then you even look at how many resources are devoted to football now at even the prep level. And now,
Yeah.
streaming services are broadcasting games and they're on ESPN and they have high school
Right.
showcases. And dude, I remember experiencing that because I grew up in a hotbed for prep ball in Georgia. And then when I went to Minnesota, it was like non-existent. We didn't even have a touchdown club. And then,
Yeah.
now they have touchdown clubs. Now they got Nike uniforms. I think we had like Rawlings or something like that. It was crazy.
Whatever from the local Dunhams, right? That's what you had.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we could barely get a pair of Under Armour shorts in old Fairmont, um,
Yeah.
but even looking at where you're from Egan, right? If I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
So Egan's got the TC Performance Facility, right? TCO.
They get like at one game there a year, I think, but they have their own really nice turf stadium,
Huge.
got a good scoreboard, right? Like
Yeah.
they got good a good booster club, I think is their term for it, right? So yeah, no, we had a good booster club too, I'll say, when I was there, but I think it was starting, right? Like or it had existed but got revamped. So no, yeah, there's a lot of good resources out there, and if that's the cool part too. I think for if there's any high school people or people that are trying to really today, I think. maybe more than any other time, if you want to do something, you can do it. Right? Like if you want to learn something, YouTube University, right? That's a real thing, right? Like the amount of content. You want to become good at football, right? Start following these. You want to be a football coach. Start following these football accounts, right? That are just putting out great content, and you're
Right.
going to learn. You're going to get better, right? So I think that's a really neat, fun thread through this conversation, but it applies to this as well. Because if you want to citizen journalism or you want to become something or you want to learn something, the tools are out there for you, and a lot of it's free.
Yeah, and that's a phenomenal point. I think this is going to be a very Steven Pinker-esque point, but there's a lot of existential dread and doom and gloom nowadays. But I genuinely believe, in terms of resources, access to knowledge and information, and just your ability to scale as a human being, there's never been a better time to be alive.
Yeah.
And just what you said in terms of that. And I think that's probably a good opportunity to pivot into, so you felt medical school wasn't your calling, even though you could help people. And you said that this is a better opportunity for you in your life, for your family, and for your clientele. What about it points to that for you?
Yeah, well, so as when you own your own business, right, in comparison to most I don't know what the percentage is, but high percentage of physicians work within some sort of healthcare system, right? They don't own a private clinic. So being, my own, being an entrepreneur in two-way areas, right? Then agency and being an NFL agent and doing this nutrition stuff with the masters and the coaching that I do for people. You set your own schedule, right? You also have to, there's challenges that come, there's plenty of challenges, right? Like client acquisition is one of the biggest ones, but you, you can set your own schedule so it can work to accomplish both those things, right? So it's like I can be an agent and help some people, right? Um, because hey, if I've got one of my clients needs something, right? we can block it off. Or I'm going to the combine. I just block off those weeks. Hey, you can't, sorry guys, can't meet with me. Or and set up my day right in a way so that if any of my clients need me during the day, I not that my days are that full anyways, but I've got those breaks right to be able to address any issues or any like needs that would come up in that moment. So that was another kind of fun component of essentially being an entrepreneur, right? But I think it goes, the other component is when you're your own boss is you can set it up however you want to set it up, not just from a schedule perspective, but like I've given people deals, right? Like, hey, I'll help you out, right? Like, or I'll give you this kind of free bit of information that's going to be really helpful for you, right? Instead of having a group of people that I'm going to answer to and just, hey, it's all on me, and so I can frees you up to do fun things like that as well. Don't have like a set quota or think something you need to hit, right? Just hey, whatever I want to do, however I want to help people.
Yeah, there's a lot of wealth in freedom of time and being unimpeded in that domain for sure. Now, you mentioned that you obviously are an NFL agent. I have a couple questions, so I want to put a placekeeper in that. But you said general pop too? Do you work with general population, or if someone who's watching this pod, because we have a decent reach,
Yeah.
someone who's watching this pod, loves your story, wants to correct some areas in their lives that may be lacking a little bit, or they're leaving
Yeah.
stuff on the table. How would you help serve them?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, like I said, a lot of my nutrition expertise goes to our agency clients, but I think I have like a dozen, no, it's more than that. Current, kind of general population, average person, right? Who's trying to get better, right? So what my program looks like is I make custom plans for people I leverage my personal experience in the NFL, my health coaching certification, my master's in nutrition, and leverage those experiences to create custom plans for people that they can so we're creating a custom plan that they can sustain and be consistent with for the next 10 years or until a major life event. So my program isn't some like, hey, like come join my program, you're gonna get jacked in 4 months, and then see you later. Right. And it's not some like, hey, this is how I stay lean. This is what you should too. Right. I have clients with very serious conditions, right? Like IBS, anxiety,
Celiac.
SIBO. Have not had a celiac one yet, actually, but have someone who's gluten sensitive
Yeah.
gets a rash every time they have gluten. And I helped them determine that. It's like,
Nice. That's
pay
awesome.
attention here, right? So anyway, um, but that's probably half of my clients, right, have something going on, significant. The other half are people that are like, hey, I just want to be better, right? I know that there's more out there, and one of the biggest things I think that improves the people that work for me is energy levels. Because I think when you that's something I like focusing on as well. Because if someone comes to me and they say, "Hey, I want to lose weight," I say, like, "Hey, okay, that's great, but that's this nebulous thing, and weight loss is not a good driver of behavior change."
Exactly.
Because the scale is going to be up and down depending on bowel movements and hydration status and if you worked out or how much fiber you had, right?
Gender.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, times, yeah, monthly cycles, right, hormone
Menstruation.
cycles. So it's like, hey, you want to lose weight, but what's that going to get you? And ultimately, weight loss for most people equals they're going to be able to squeeze more joy out of life. And so my metric typically is energy levels, because if you got
Yeah.
more energy, you're gonna be able to do more. And most of my clients, that's it's typically an hour of extra energy a day. Where it's like instead of being ready for bed at 9, they can stay up till 10 with their spouse or with their kids or go to that event, right? And not have fatigue interfere with their life. Some clients, it's actually on the other side where I had one of my clients, he's like, I don't know what you did to me, but I woke up at 5 a.m. wide awake. My alarm's not supposed to go off till 6. like,
Nice.
like awesome, man. It's like that's more rare, but good for you. So that's kind of the two types of people that I help. And it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, if anyone isn't interested, I do and just wants to talk, you can book a free consult with me on my website, zion-performance.com. Um, they're free right now. If those get crazy, then I might need to charge 10-15 bucks for it, to little barrier to entry. But right now those are free, and happy to have discussions with whoever is interested or thinks that'd be a good fit for them.
Good. I encourage everybody to go out and check that, not only because I think your orientation is right in helping people's energy levels increase or get back to a homeostatic level, but I do think that we're not necessarily masters in our own houses, right? None of us. And it's so common to always hear, oh, I'm going to go to the gym more this year. That's why we
Yeah,
see all those New Year's resolutions. And how,
yeah,
if we were masters in our own houses, we'd be able to tell ourselves to make our bed all the time, to get to the gym all the time, to eat healthy all the time. But that is just not the case. So, given that, who better to reach out to than Zach Zenner, who's a product of his own product? And if you've ever Googled any of his body comp images, obviously we're not all trying to get like Zenner, but he looked like he could have been on like the reboot of Baywatch there, because he was beach ready. You were pale though, bro. Come on, is that no sun up there
yeah.
in
No, I'm
Detroit?
no tanning. We were in Michigan at that time. Yeah, we were in Michigan.
I'm
I'm still pale.
I'm just giving you a hard
There's no
time.
hiding the skin tone.
Also, great time to drop vitamin D. Vitamin D is vital. So get some natural sun or a supplement if you need to, right?
Yeah, I've actually been on a kick of I've been on a kick, and you'll love this. And we have to be cautious we don't go down these rabbit holes, you and I.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
we can. But
That's right.
I've been on a kick of grounding actually recently. So
Sweet.
I have like an anklet that I plug into the wall in my bedroom that I sleep on. I sleep with it on, and it's helped my sleep a little bit. And it's been proven to help with neuropathies. And anyway, that's kind of been the recent thing. So I'm constantly doing experiments on myself. I'm running I just finished up and I've got another experiment incoming, another supplement. I'm always experimenting with stuff to see what works and what doesn't. So I just finished up two experiments. One was the grounding, the other was a nitric oxide supplement.
Hmm,
Uh, so anyway, yeah, I'm always digging up new stuff for my clients and for myself. I just love it. It's ever since I've been in the NFL, like I talked about my background, right? And I'm taking those out and I'm bringing them not just to my general population clients, but our NFL clients as well.
that's awesome. Yeah, I really wish that I would have taken sleep more seriously in college.
Right.
Just the
Yeah.
overstimulation of, and I didn't even drink coffee in college. No faux adrenaline, no faux uppers, nothing like that. And I didn't drink soda. The thing that got me was just probably not having enough, like the right macro nutrient breakdown, not
Mhm.
having enough financial resources to supplement uh, properly. That's where NIL would have come in great, or the JFPA if we had those resources, man.
Right.
That's
Yeah. I mean,
phenomenal.
like the food situation is totally different now at South Dakota State than when we were there, and it,
Yeah,
drastically for the better. A lot of that from the JFPA.
for sure. And aesthetically, you can see a difference. I mean, I always thought Coach Mo was a pretty good strength coach, and Coach Jacobs is obviously cut from his cloth. He's one of his disciples, and I use that respectfully. But I think it's just nuts to look at because the FCS historically was a little bit smaller, undersized, namely across the lines. But now you look at our offense and defensive lines. You look at what the muscle mass and the power increase in the rate of force development that Jacobs is able to create now. It's unreal, and a lot of that is again the modernization of the game, the resources being poured into the game, and stuff like that, which is just nuts.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Saturday was a good example of that where I don't. There were certainly plays and players that you could argue were physically outmatched, but as a whole, it was not like, oh wow, we're way smaller than them,
Yeah,
It wasn't like that at all.
exactly. Yeah, not at all. And really, the area I would say, obviously, not executing up to our standard. I think that's what got us in
Right.
the end. But overall, their offensive line was just so seasoned. Their offensive line was like is the most experienced in all of the FBS, and they're pretty good. Not
That's the thing. That's my to clarify my point, right? It's like the loss was because we played a good team and didn't execute the way you
mhm,
need to execute when you play a good team,
yeah,
right? Like whenever you're playing a good team, you can't afford to miss a 3rd and 2, a wide open 3rd and 2, right on the first series, and you can't
mhm,
afford to have as many missed tackles as we had, right, on defense, being in the right spots, right? Just because you're playing, that's one way. It's because it was because they were a good team. It
yeah.
wasn't because we were undersized or physically outmatched.
Couldn't have put it any better. That's why I'm not overreacting to that, and that's why I don't overreact to teams like, and I mean this respectfully because everybody knows North Dakota State's a pretty solid program,
Yeah,
but I don't overreact to them playing a non-bowl qualifying team close. I mean, let's be
yeah,
real here. Colorado has a few unbelievable athletes,
yeah.
and North Dakota State did a good job executing on its time of possession game plan. So I think, yeah, again, just kudos to all the FCS powers, really, even Montana State getting the job done against a bottom feeder. But still, you gotta beat who you play.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, they're on the schedule, right? And yeah, that was a really good team a year ago. New Mexico, or was it 2 years ago? Anyway, they were good, they've had a
Yeah,
good year in recent history, and yeah, go down and get that win. Absolutely for Montana State, and just a sign that they're going to be good again, right?
yeah.
Like I don't care, it's like they're back, right? It's going to be some similar faces at the end of the year, I think.
Was that your most memorable game? Because you had a hell of a game again. Was it in 2014 against Montana State in the snow?
Yeah, yeah, that was a memorable game. I actually think I might. I don't know if my toes have actually ever recovered. I mean, being completely
Are you
serious,
being serious?
like that's not sarcastic. Yeah, like I actually got frostbite on my toes. My toes burned the whole plane ride home, and like I used to not really have issues like with cold feet, and ever since then, my feet have got cold way easier. So I don't know if there's any
Literally,
permanent.
not metaphorically. Cold feet,
I don't know if
literally.
there's any permanent neurological damage. It might be better. I don't know, but that definitely affected me for a very long time. My feet. That was memorable. There's so many memorable games. That was a fun one. Man, I'm trying to think now. You know what? Honestly, was more. Even though we lost, what was more fun for me was the following week when we went up to Fargo and went up by 4 with 3 minutes left against Carson Wentz and his Bison team. Kyle Emanuel, Grant, Carlton Littlejohn, all those guys on that defense. And the reason that was more memorable to me because I had been vouching for a Wildcat for the whole year. You can ask Coach Luke every week. I'd be on the whiteboard. Coach, what do you think of this? Drawing up Wildcat offense plays. And the reason I said I only want to run it against the Bison, and we did put it in. We'd always had it right as
Yeah,
that kind of goal line. Cam did it in 2012
yeah.
for us. We kind of got away from it more in 2013, 2014. Brought it back with when I was the court, Wildcat. And the reason that game was so memorable to me, one, because it was a great game, right? Just the back and forth, and even it sucked, but like just going up against a team of that caliber, slug, fist, punch after punch, right, taking blows, giving blows. But then from our offense, that was the first time I felt like we ever had the Bison defense on their heels. Like looking at their faces, seeing them tired, kind of out of sorts, yelling at each other about the reads and the fits, right? That has never been the case I feel like at every other time we had played them, it was like they knew what we were going to do, we knew what they were going to do, let's see what happens. But that game was different, and we almost had them.
You could
uh,
feel it. You could feel it even as a spectator watching because, like, I mean, my class had some success. I should say my class as in the one that I got there with, not when I actually graduated. I was on the
you were
extended.
there forever. You were
Yeah,
there forever, dude.
I was the original COVID extra year, you
You
know.
were. You were.
Now I just feel a lot better that dudes are playing for 9 years, so I can kind of
Right.
fade in.
Yeah,
I'm
you
like
don't look
that.
nearly as, yeah, yeah.
I'm like that
Your
Homer
tenure is not
Simpson.
nearly as long in comparison to some these days.
I know. I'm like fading into the shrubs like that Homer Simpson meme now, so it's great. Um, but watching that game, one, we schemed them up really well. We executed pretty well for the most part. I want to say special teams was even rolling with us in that game,
Yeah,
just playing a
yeah,
more complete game all around. And Sam Herder, who does a great job covering FCS ball, as well as FCS Nation Radio out there, Kevin and Stone Labanowitz, they've talked about that 14 field and how it was so wide open because there were multiple teams that year that
yeah,
really could have won the Natty. Obviously, Illinois State and North Dakota State playing for it.
yeah,
Us, we really should have taken out North Dakota State. Just honestly, an all-world player by Wentz and RJ Urzendowski, a young buck stepping up in that time. Sometimes players make plays, and it was that was a really cool one. That was really cool. And I think you balled out there because, obviously they talked a lot of trash about you, but I will say that we got a lot better at game planning and scheming their defense um, because some of the years like leading up to your upperclassmen years, we were pretty predictable. And again, now you can see the depth that we have established due to resourcing and stuff like that. Whereas like our 1 and 2 deep was pretty thin, even throughout our successful years when you were rolling.
I feel like, yeah, well, that was what's so fun is like the wrinkle we put in and was I got to carry the ball. But you think about like the 2012 year, like our defense was so good. And we
Yeah,
always had a good defense, but like we shut them down in 2012, and that's what really kept us in the game. So that's when I think of 2014. The special teams, like you said, and defense was playing well, but I really felt like that was one of the first Bison games where we were we were returning the blows against their defense, right? And because their defense had been so dominant for so long. And
Yeah,
that's why
1,000%.
that sticks out to me.
Certainly, because if you look at their average points per game allowed throughout the course of that span, it's
Mhm.
like 10, 13, 15. It's like ridiculously low. And then you
Yeah.
look at contrasting that with our defense the last couple years, even the last 3 to 5 years, our defense is in that type of echelon. Now we are that squad. So really cool to hear your insight on that, man. And hopefully your toes get better. Maybe you'll find some magic herb root.
Honestly, I actually think like the nitric oxide experiment has helped. Like I did an experiment with
Vaso,
that. Um,
vasodilates it, you think, all the way down
yeah.
there?
So it's a product from Calroy Sciences developed it, but so actually you'll love this too.
Yeah.
So I bought their testing strips. These are nitric oxide test strips.
Is that Designs by Health?
Designs for health, yeah.
For health. I take their supplements. They're good. That's good stuff.
Yeah. So like you can test right now, like I could test like what my nitric oxide levels are, and then it's got the indications, right? So I did the before and after, right? Like, hey, okay, you say the supplement helps with nitric oxide, like let's see. And it worked. And then I think I have noticed in my toes that it has helped. So anyway,
Mm.
kind of to that point, as a potential took me a while, but I might have a solution here.
That's good. And I think we're getting down to the wire here, so I won't keep you too much longer. But I think it's really worth noting now that you've pivoted into the health optimization space as well as being an NFL agent. There was an article that came out, I want to say New York Times or Forbes, one of the top mainstream publications, stating that CEOs who worked out with weight training and got a certain amount of rest were more successful organizations by
Yeah,
far. Like it's like night and day. And
that's cool.
there was a stigma historically, like when I was coming out of college and interviewing with a lot of organizations where you'd get kind of put in a box and labeled. And now I love how I really do think the health optimization space and wearable technology and different sectors within health and human performance have kind of moved the needle to where it's more accepted that everybody needs to get after it in some way, shape, or form, whether it's hiking,
Yeah,
whether it's spin class. You need to move. You need to move your body, and your organization is going to benefit as a result.
right. Well, it's funny. I was talking to shout out TJ Carlson, president of FCA, and was talking to him this summer a little bit about this, and it works in this sense that you're talking about. But we were talking in terms of our faith, where there's a phrase that gets thrown around in Christian where if you're a Christian, sometimes you're the only Bible someone's ever going to read. When that phrase is to mean is the purpose of that is, hey, you need to represent the faith well. As you go out and you represent the Christian faith, you might be someone's only interaction with the Christian faith, right? Which for us is the Bible, but for them, it might just be you. You are their Bible, right? And
Mhm.
then to that point, the cover matters.
Yeah.
The cover matters, right? Yeah, you're a good person, but like the Bible says your body is a temple. So are you caring for yourself, right? And then that translates to business, where like, hey, if you are taking care of yourself physically, then you're going to show up better mentally. It all is this upward spiral, right? Where hey, you're you're gonna look good, you're gonna feel good, you're gonna play good, right? And that play essentially becomes that business performance.
That's such a good point. Yeah, I mean, being a product of the product, no matter what it is, hopefully more edifying products is
Yeah.
always the method, right? And I always wondered why you didn't dive into medical practice, man. But I think that you definitely made the right decision because so many medical doctors have such an abridged, very small, minute knowledge, working knowledge when it comes to nutrition. And I
Yeah.
think obviously, um, you have the man cannot live on bread alone, mantra down, and you also have the type of bread men need to eat and consume to
Yeah.
consistently be at their best. So I think that's awesome, man. I'm glad you're making that impact, but I'm also glad, similar to me, but me in a very small small and different fashion, staying connected to football. I love that you're repping for athletes as well. So before we dip off here, just shed some light on what you're doing with that, and then if people are interested in maybe working with you, what do you offer them?
Yeah. So essentially what we're using is so one of it's myself, my partner Jeremiah Searles, who played in the NFL for 6 years, and then the agent that represented us, Chris Giddings. He represented both of us while he played. Now
I
so
know
three
him
of us
well.
going it, taking on the world, right?
Yeah.
So us three taking on the world, and really we're leveraging our personal experience in the NFL to use that to bring it to guys to mentor them, right? So hey, what what do you need to focus on? What should your energy be focused on? What should you avoid? Right. And I think people will get caught up in this idea of contracts and marketing. That's typically what an agent is viewed for. And those are important. And we do those things. We do them very well, in fact. But what's your agency doing for you to get you to the second contract? What's your agency doing for you to get you in a better position to get marketing deals? No one cares if you're not on the field on Sundays, right? Like that, you got to be on the field to get that marketing stuff. And if you don't play, you're not going to get the second deal. Majority of players get to the NFL, are out of the NFL
Before the second deal.
before they're even vested. That's a whole year prior to the start of the second contract, right? Because the NFL has the vested to become a vested veteran need to have 3 games on the active roster for 3 separate years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason that's where the line is. The NFL is very good at counting their money.
Oh, of course.
The reason is because most people don't even make it to three years on active roster, right? So what's your agency doing for you to get you over that hump and to even get you to the second contract where our contractual experience, which a lot of that is dependent on Chris, who's been doing it for 30 years, right? The senior member of our agency. But a lot of people get caught up in this, you know, uh, contracts and marketing, and that is great and it is valuable. But most people, they don't get there. So how are you going to get there? And that's what we do really well. So if you're into football and you don't care that I drive the same truck I bought rookie year and wear suits from J.C. Penney, then we're a good agency for you.
Love it. The accessible agent, Zach Zenner.
I also here's another thing though too. People can hit me up on DMs and stuff, but I am happy to have a conversation. I've had many conversations with people that I haven't represented, but given them honest feedback and advice.
Mm.
So that's out there as well. Like, hey, we don't have room for you in our agency this year. I'm happy to answer your questions
Yeah.
and to point you in a direction, see what what you need or what I would do if I was in, your situation.
And you're not going to charge for that, huh? You must be a Christian.
Yeah. Well, typically it's just a phone call.
Yeah.
Typically most guys just need one phone call, right? 20, 30 minutes. I can answer some of their questions. I've had a couple of guys that have followed, had some follow-ups, but yeah, it's I'm happy to be a resource because it's hard to get honest feedback in this space. When agencies are recruiting you, it can be challenging to separate what's real and what's not
Yeah.
because people are putting cloaks around themselves telling you what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And some people call me and they're like, they just really appreciate the honesty. I'm like, hey, here's where I think you're at.
Yeah. I always think transparency, I mean, in a very different capacity, I work with hiring reps, right? And training them and being a vehicle for them to improve and work up in their career. And I could promise them, make false promises, dangle shiny objects in front of them. But I realize, similar to you, at the end of the day, I'd much rather be candid and transparent, level set on the front end. And then I've found that always has them coming back to people they trust. So I like that approach. I like that ethos, sowing seeds to the end. I love it. My last question. Oh, you got something?
No, go ahead.
My last question for you is, What is the most valued position outside of your own that you saw on the football field, and why is it fullback?
Uh, your question is, yeah, what do I think is the highest value position on the football field?
My question was rhetorical, but why is it fullback?
Why is it fullback?
And why is it fullbacks who wear number 47? Because wasn't your boy Burton? Wasn't he 47 at no, he's
No, he was
40,
46.
46.
46. So
One
close.
off a good number. One off.
He's like a low number now in Denver, though, I think.
Yeah, was he a single digit? I feel like I saw him
No, no, no. He would never go single digit. I feel like he was number 22.
20. Yeah, 20 something. Yep.
He's the double deuce out there.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
But he was 45. Yeah. I feel like he wanted to just look skinnier, probably. 'Cause he
Don't
was
we
in the
all?
40s for a while. But I mean, I can answer your question. The reason someone could make an argument that the fullback is the most influential position on the football field is because it sets the tone for your team.
That's right.
Or like if you think about an opening play and you're gonna go I formation and you're gonna run counter with a fullback, right?
Yeah.
Like that's gonna set the tone for what the day is gonna be like. And that only happens when you got someone who's got a little bit of a screw loose back there who's gonna run through someone's face mask and set the tone for your team.
Dude, I got to go back to work after this. I'm going to be so amped. They're going to be questioning my motive. Like, why are you trying to sell to me so aggressively? No, I agree
That's the
wholeheartedly.
argument I would make for a fullback.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but and maybe it's a little bit of cope, but I do like to say fullback is the most unique position, certainly offensively. Along it's tied to guards, I would say guards and centers and pullers, but you clear the way for others to succeed, and I think that is the ultimate um, ethos and aim of the game of football. We all have a role to play, clearing the way for others to succeed, and I think that's what makes it so ingratiating with people. People of all different types of skill sets and abilities too can play the game. So
What's ingratiating mean?
ingratiated, like
Bringing them together, aggregating people, basically.
correct. Yeah.
Nice, nice one.
Thanks. Now I'm pissed I used it because if you don't know it, then none of the fans are going to know what that is. We'll edit
Well,
that
we've
out.
addressed it. We've
Yeah,
addressed it.
we
It's
have.
funny. To that point, I'm coaching flag football. My son is in first grade. I'm coaching first and second graders, and we're working on what's our right hand and what's our left hand, right? Like these are the things. This is the level we're at.
Left
Hold on
hand.
the hands.
Yeah.
Which one's an L, guys?
Yeah.
So we're gonna go power left now, right? So, but we're talking to like, it's what are they asking? When am I gonna be running back? When am I gonna be quarterback? Right? And I'm like, hey, and I'm teaching exactly what you're saying. Like, look, when you're running back, don't you want people to block for you? Because we're all going to take turns. So yeah, only one person can touch the ball or carry the ball play. Most of the plays are going to be blocking, so we got to get good at it. So we're doing, this is the pre-speech to the bull in the ring drill that we did. Push each other around, right? So um,
Dang, Zach Zenner going harder than I did even when I was coaching flag.
I
That's
mean,
crazy.
we don't have helmets or anything, so I just line two people up and say, "Hey, who's going to push each other out? Who's going to push each other farther here?" And I have people place bets, and the loser has to run. We only do
Dang.
that for
And
a little bit. That's like a
what
fun break between drills.
what age group again?
First and second grade.
Oh, okay. Dang, starting them early. I like it. It was like herding cats when I was coaching them, man. I never developed a better appreciation for communication and the saying that communication is not what is said, but what is heard. Because those kids would hear whatever they wanted to hear. And
Uh,
the funny thing is, like you hit the nail on the head. Every kid wants to be in the star role, right? Quarterback, running back, receiver. But I had in Texas, it's a different beast. Hopefully, it's a little bit more laid back and better perspective in Minnesota. But Texas, man, I literally told the parents like 3 different times during the season, everybody is going to play every position because nobody ever looked back on their life and gloated over their first place ribbon in flag football when they're in first grade. So
Right.
you guys need to tone it down and understand they all need access to all the different positions in the game so they can develop a
Yeah.
better love for it. So I think that's cool what you're doing.
Yeah.
You'll have to let me know who emerges as a future fullback for the Jacks because we're all happy about that one.
Yeah, we'll see. I've got a couple candidates. It's hard to tell physically where things are going to shake out, but right
Right.
now I got a couple guys that could be fullback for sure.
That's right. Just bring them through the Zion Performance line as you go up, and then put them in the pipe.
They'll get big. They're just going to get bigger and bigger. Yeah. No, we'll see how it goes. I just want to run a successful. I just want good operation Saturday morning. So we're going to run one play out of one formation, and then that's it. That's all we're going to run on Saturday.
I
It's
love
going
it,
to be
man.
power right, power right. That's what we're running. Split back, wing right, split back, power right. All my opponents, go ahead, write it down. I don't care. You can't stop us. That's all we're running.
Did My question is, did you even practice any defense as an offensive guy?
We practice yeah, I had the kids try to tackle me. Yeah.
I
So
love it.
like I was like pull my flag. So but no, we didn't line up at we didn't no, because it's like, hey, swarm. I taught them
Yeah.
swarm. I taught them. We did do
Pursuit drill? You had him do
we did
pursuit drill?
no, we did corner tackling, or like that's what I called it. But basically, it's like, well, I had two guys, right? So I was the running back. I've got two guys here, and said, hey, stay on your side and corner me, right? Just like learning to work together with like a kind of like a two-man tackling drill, essentially.
Mhm.
Like stay on your leverage, right? Keep your leverage because you have your teammate over here, right? So we worked that, and they did get a lot better at tackling. And then we did like sharks and minnows, right, to work tackling. Um, but no, I'm more worried about having successful offensive operation. That's what I'm
Mhm.
concerned about.
Totally get it, man. That's awesome. Well, they're lucky to have you as their coach and mentor, and I really appreciate your time, man. As always, jumping on this call to share more about what you're doing and to boost the signal for the Jacks, because obviously you learned a lot about yourself in blue and yellow, and did a
Yeah.
lot for the organization, the town of Brookings, and it was great seeing you at the Natty, man, and continuing to support the boys in the
Yeah.
biggest of moments. So that was cool.
Yeah, no, super fun. But and people ask me like, I follow the Jacks, right? I watch the game and I love keeping up with everything. And as soon as my kids will sit through a football game, I will be there at least once a year.
I love it. I love it, man. And it's not too terribly far from the metro. So that's cool.
No, yeah, no, and yeah, it's just the hard part is right now I drive all the way out there because I do a lot of work, do a lot of work hard, and I can't, and I travel a lot for the agency, so I can't travel out by myself. Hey, I'm peace, wife that works harder than I do to keep this house in order. I'm going to a Jack's game, and so I got to bring the kids, and I'm not driving 4 hours and setting it all up to just be chasing them through the concourse because they're not going to sit still for the whole however long the game is going to be.
Yeah, that's a smart move. You want to make sure they can run power right maybe before you bring them.
Power right. If you can run power right and understand plays, we can all come. So I gotta wait. I don't know that. I think probably next year. Next year we're gonna consider it because I got our youngest is 2.5 right now. Just about. He's close to 2.5. So when he's 3.5, we got a shot. We got a
Yeah, I
shot.
think so. So you're saying there's a chance. Love it.
But yeah, feel more confident about 2026.
That's good
Much more
stuff.
confident about 4.5. Now we're talking.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, let all the audience know again, real quick, how they can get in
Yeah.
contact with you if they're looking for performance stuff, and then about your agency.
Yeah, so I'm active on X, very active on X. So can DM me stuff, DM me on there, on Instagram and LinkedIn as well, but not as active. And then www.zion-performance.com. That's the website where you can check out my stuff, book a free consult. I've also got a course. I've got two courses that I've made to help with high school and collegiate athletes. One's called How to Gain, the other one's called How to Lean. And everyone that's done the gain course has gained 3 pounds in 3 weeks. So that's on the website as well. But that's kind of where you can find me. And then the agency stuff, the same avenues for the agency as well.